Hey, kindergarten, first grade writers, authors, illustrators, we're going to read this book called How This Book Was Made, and is written by Mark Barnett and pictures by Adam Rex. And while I'm reading, I'm going to take the cover off, which is kind of cool. Look at that. It has a picture of an astronaut. I wonder why.
I don't know if they can really see that. I'm going to
know
move
either.
in.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
So, ooh, it's even cloth covered. All right, How This Book Was Made. Oh, it goes from an astronaut to what? I don't know. What is this about?
I almost gave it away.
All right. How This Book Was Made. So Mark Barnett lives in California, and Adam Rex, he lives in
Arizona? New Mexico?
That's Arizona, New Mexico.
New Mexico.
I have to turn it so it looks like the map.
I'm actually bad at that part of this.
It's based on a true story.
Ooh.
So let's say, at first this book wasn't a book. It was an idea. Kind of like what yours is right now, an idea. Ideas come at funny times. Oh, that must be where the front cover came from.
Yeah.
When I had an idea for this book, I went to a quiet place and I wrote. I wrote from early in the morning until late at night. It was very hard work. And soon I had a bunch of words on paper. Those words were a first draft. So that's what you guys have done. You brainstormed and now you have your first draft. I worked and I worked, and with the 21st drafts, I was done. So it took them 20 times to figure it out. Or the 21st was done. So I sent my words to my editor in New York City. An editor tells you what parts of your story are good and what parts you need to fix. So your parents can be your editor at this point. She is like a teacher, only she works in a skyscraper and is always eating fancy lunches. I suppose, I don't know. So there's all the way from here to New York. My editor called me and said, I love this, it's perfect. Now, here are all the things you have to change. And they do. They change a lot of things. And she sent me the story back to me. I took some of her advice and I ignored some of the advice. And then I sent the story back to her. So they go back and forth. She sent the story right back and asked me why I had ignored some of her advice. And I said I didn't think they were good ideas. And she said, I thought they were great ideas. And I said, well, let's agree to disagree. And she said, let's agree with me. And I said, you're not the boss of me. And it went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which is probably very true. Because an author writes their story and it doesn't always want to be told to change it. Until most of the United States, from back and forth, was crossed out. Many Americans were not happy about this.
That's silly.
Eventually, my editor loved all my words, and I loved all my words. Even the tiger, who had returned with a posse, loved all my words. I was finished writing, but it was Arizona. Oh my gosh. It's so bad. I even lived in that state.
I said Arizona. I was right.
So bad. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. Bronson is probably saying, Ms. Anderson. It was Arizona at this very front page. I was finished writing, but this book was still not a book. The words needed pictures, so my editor in New York sent them to my illustrator in Arizona. It took the illustrator a very long time to draw all the pictures for the book. I don't know what he was doing that whole time, but he must have been working very hard. Doesn't look like he is, but sometimes you need to think about it. I sat around and waited.
Oh, look, he grew a beard while he was waiting.
And finally, the illustrator sent all his artwork to New York, and his artwork and my text sat in a skyscraper, waiting to be printed. So there's all the artwork, and there's the words.
That's neat that it shows you that.
I know. Now, the fastest way to get this book to bookstores and libraries was to print it nearby in New York or Philadelphia or maybe Miami. But this book was printed in Malaysia.
Which is really far away.
It was on the other side of the world. Malaysia, where contraptions called printing press rumble and steam. A lady put the words and the art into one side of the machine, and out the other came a book. So cool. Kind of like our printer, but better because it puts it into a book.
We could make books next.
I know, right?
Sorry, K-1 friends.
And then another book, and another, thousands and thousands of books. This book was buried below a great pile of so tall you could see it from space. There's the tall pile.
Do you think that's true?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Astronauts looked down at Earth. that day and saw a stack of books. And this Great Wall of China, they also saw. There it is, the Great Wall of China, right next to each other. They smiled and then floated around a bunch while eating astronaut ice cream.
I think he made that up.
Yeah, they don't eat the ice cream outside in space.
No, because how would they get it to their mouths?
Silly. But that's science. This is literature. And at last, this book was ready to be read. It needed to get to the United States as fast as it could. Of course, the fastest way would be to put them on a jet. But this book was put on a boat. A slow boat took all the books across the sea. The journey was dull until the pirates arrived.
Again.
2 pirates swarmed the boat and quickly overran it. They tied up the crew and stole the captain's keys. The lead buccaneer kicked open the hatch to the ship's hold. The pirates held their breath and imagined their treasure. There was no gold inside, just books. Pirates don't read, so they sailed away. Oh. When this book came into harbor, it was put on a truck. The driver put the truck into gear and drove down the highway. He braked hard for a tiger crossing the road, and this book fell off the back. And an eagle swooped down and grabbed the book for her babies to eat, not to read. Eagles don't read books either. I guess
This book has been on an adventure.
I know. And some really funny things. Oh, she ripped out a corner, but her chicks didn't like it. They pushed the book out of their nest.
Aww.
And they're not called chicks, they're called eaglets, but that's okay. They're birds, so chicks.
And this isn't a science
And
book.
it's not a science book. This book briefly served as a roof for a toad until it was picked up by a dog that brought it back to his owner, so he brought the book there, who lost it that night in a bad hand of poker with the dogs. To a truck driver whose load was 1 book short. He made his delivery to a woman who put it on a shelf next to many other books. This book waited and waited.
It says, and I waited.
And I waited, yes, and look, the book.
Oh, the book grew a beard.
Just like he did. And the tiger waited, and his posse waited, and the pirates, and the astronauts, and the editor waited, and the illustrator, and the old lady, and her dog waited. And the truck driver, and the angry ink-splattered Americans, and the family of eagles, and the people of Malaysia, they waited. We all waited. Here in this book, which is practically bursting, just waiting for someone to open it. Because a book can have words and pictures and paper and tigers, but a book still isn't a book. Not really, until it has a reader. And then you came along.
Aww. You saved the book.
And you read this book through the very last page, which was how this book was made. Oh,
I like that
that was the
book.
first time I read it.
That was a good book.
So your book, you're going to
I'm
be,
gonna
so
move
you've
again.
practiced, you've practiced your handwriting, you've done some story maps, we've talked about characters, setting, favorite parts, illustrators, you've written your ideas and how you want to start your story once upon a time. You've got your characters figured out, and maybe you don't, because as you start writing, it might change. You've drawn pictures of what it might look like. You've thought of a setting. As you start writing about your story and how Pearl and Tracker met here at school, and then we went to the dog park, maybe something else happened after that. Maybe went out for puppuccinos.
See, and then I thought maybe they met a snake.
Right? So exactly. You never know. Your story changes as you write.
Our stories are very different too.
So now you've got these blank pages with lines. This is where
Are
your
they
story
starting their
begins.
story?
They are. So editing is what we're going to call it. Your draft. That's what we're going to call it. You're going to write your draft. And your editor, who normally would be me, but I'm not there to do it for you. Your parents can look through it. They can help you with spelling of words. And that's why there's lots of spaces, because when you start writing, your editor marks it up and says, oh, you need a capital letter here, and so they'll write it. So when you're all done, then you could either choose, all of you got this fabulous little book. We couldn't do our normal, but this is what we got. So in here, it says written and illustrated by. So that's you. You're going to write your name. You're going to think, you don't have to draw pictures yet. Think about your words first. Once you're all ready, your story's done, your draft is done, you're ready to do your best handwriting, you're going to open up your book and you're going to start writing your story. So when you're doing your editing, or your parents are editing it and you were thinking about it, think about what will go on each page. So if I said here, once upon a time, there was a dog named Tracker. So I might stop there, and that might be my only sentence. Or I might say, So add some other things. And then I would know I could draw that, because you don't want to write a lot of things. Because if I said, once upon there was a dog named Tracker, and he went to the park and he met Pearl, and they ran around and found a snake, that's a lot of things to draw on one little picture. So think about when you're writing your story and you're marking where your pages are going to be, think about that. So then, because you have many more pages, look to see how many pages you have, because you're limited here. You don't have to fill them all up.
But you can.
But you can. It depends on your story. We'll talk a little bit more about what we'll put here on the front page here, but you'll start your writing here. Leave this one blank until tomorrow. We'll talk about that. So yeah, start writing your story.
I can't wait to hear what their stories are about.
I know. I don't do this. This is your last thing. This is the last, but I wanted to show you where this is so you know where this book is at. Start writing your draft. And like you said, that book took 21 times till he got it right. And then he sent it to the editor and it kept going back and forth and back and forth. So no, it's not going to be done quickly. Even if you don't get to this until after graduation, please still send me a video of you reading your story to me.
That would be awesome.
Or you can put it on Blooms. I will keep Blooms up all summer. And if you finally finish your book in the middle of summer, you can read it to all of us. And I will listen, and so will Miss Kathy. I know she will.
Yep.
She loves seeing our videos. So that's it. I cannot wait to hear. I've heard a few that I've talked to on Zoom, what their story has been about. And it's pretty exciting. So I can't wait to hear them, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.